Many people who've been involved with internal control audits are familiar with the COSO framework. What made COSO think that an update was necessary?
And I think COSO had a couple key reasons. One was that it was a 20-year-old document, and much has changed around the world and in businesses in that 20-year period.
Yeah, and the key point to also consider here is that really the key principles in the 1992 framework have been carried forward to this updated framework.
Okay, so it
Right.
wasn't an overhaul.
It wasn't an overhaul, and in fact, our stakeholder survey indicated an overwhelming majority of the respondents said, no, it doesn't need to be overhauled at all. Just tweak it, just update it for changes in business environment, which Stephen alluded to, such as the growth of shared service centers, the growth of service organizations, and the outsourcing of some of these functions. What's the control implication associated with those types of business changes, in addition to companies going global?
COSO also recognized that the internal control framework is a stalwart or a very basic tool used by virtually every SEC registrant. So when you read it, you'll find that the core definition of internal control hasn't changed. The 5 components of an effective system of internal control are still fundamentally the same. The 3 categories of objectives where internal control can be applied are fundamentally the same.
So what are some of the things that did change in the updated framework?
Well, the first and probably the most noticeable change is the fact that 17 principles are now explicitly articulated in the framework. And those principles were implicit in the 92 framework.
The requirements for an effective system of internal control now require that each of these 17 principles be present and functioning, across the business.
So this updated framework, companies have to put it into place right away. When do they have to go live with this framework? Do they have to go live with this framework?
COSO has announced in March that it intends to supersede the 1992 framework with this framework at the end of December 14.
So if I'm a company and I'm looking ahead, 2014 is a little bit off in the distance. Is there something I should be doing now?
Talking to large caps and small caps in the public realm, we found that if they understood the 92 framework, it should not be a significant hurdle in terms of the amount of time to assess how their existing system of internal control aligns with the updated framework. That being said, it's not to say that everybody understood the 92 framework the same way or adapted to transformational or incremental change that has occurred over the years. And the updated framework may highlight areas that will require some attention. I think the key timeline, recognizing the December 14th deadline, would be to have that preliminary assessment completed in concert with the 13 audit. And that would give you time to address any areas that need attention before the summer of 2014.
I guess the last point I would make is where companies are starting this process, companies are probably very well versed in their control activities and to a great extent the monitoring activities. Where they should focus is in information communication, risk assessment, and control environment, because those are the areas that companies have not focused on in the same manner as control activities. We call those the softer sides of COSO. But now that the principles have been articulated, companies can look at what controls they've put in place to affect those particular principles and focus on any changes that are necessary there. Because as I said, the control activities and to the extent monitoring is probably very mature within these companies at this point.
And so the earlier you can get the document and you can read it and you can see where you're vulnerable and where you're confident, the better. It gives you more time to address any areas that need attention.